I am so festive. I just wanted to see Santa, and he turned out to be Kurt Russell. It's hard to close my eyes, because it's kind of awesome. See, wouldn't it be more interesting if a Christmas movie did that?
Are you listening?
Tommy, you can slow down!
Come back here!
Papa's got a brand new bag.
Why must they keep drawing me like that? Does my butt really look that big to you?
Christmas Chronicles, a new Christmas film starring Kurt Russell as Sweet Papa Crimbo. Totally free to stream. Well, not free, you still gotta pay a membership. But, nevertheless, it is here, and I am going to review it. Christmas Chronicles tells the story of the Pierce family. The story of the Pierce family is told through a series of home videos that have been taken over the course of about a decade or so. And as these things usually tend to go, the family suffers a very severe case of one of the parents being deaditis. Usually that tends to afflict most Disney families, but in this case it hits this family pretty hard. And unfortunately it has affected the two kids of the family, Kate and Teddy. Well, whereas Kate is still, the angelic cherubic child trying to hold on to her Christmas spirit, you've got Teddy who has somewhat lashed out. I say somewhat, very, very mildly. He has become something of a juvenile delinquent and has pretty much had his faith rocked as far as the whole spirit of being good, of joy, of giving. And Christmas isn't exactly the time he really wants to think about. So when he's forced to watch over his sister one night, she insists, from looking at a previous video, that she saw a little bit of Santa pop in on one of those videos. So they decide to spend the night perched up with a camera perched up, and they Home Alone style their home to hopefully catch a glimpse of St. Nicholas. Well, they get a bit more than they bargained for, because unfortunately they catch him in the act, but as a result, it has Santa's sleigh crashing in the middle of Chicago. His magic sack ends up this place, his magic hat goes somewhere over there, and the reindeer are all over the place, and the sleigh is demolished. So you've got these kids having to assist him in trying to get all this stuff back together so they can finish all of his deliveries before Christmas morning. Now, the way I'm laying this out, I guess you can conclude that this is something you would probably see on the Disney Channel or on Freeform or any of those, more family-oriented channels. And normally I would not waste my time with this, but let's face it, the prospect of seeing Kurt Russell, Snake Plissken, Stuntman Mike playing Santa Claus is too irresistible to pass up. And the best part about this movie is it's as awesome as it sounds. And without hesitation, I'm going to put him in the pantheon of great on-screen Santas. Definitely right next to Douglas Seal and Ernest Saves Christmas. Definitely right up there with David Huddleston, Santa Claus the Movie. And I'll probably even put him with Nick Frost as Santa and Doctor Who. And of course, North from Rise of the Guardians. He is right up there with all of them. Now, you think with Kurt Russell playing Santa, he's going to be a bit more hard and a bit more gruff, and he does channel that a bit, and you think it's going to be hard to take him seriously as the jolly man himself. But oddly enough, you do. You get taken up by how enthusiastic he is, and how dedicated he is to the cause, and how sad he is by the prospect that this might not work. There's points in the movie where he actually gets very sad that he might fail, and you actually feel bad because he's so much fun that you're like, oh, damn it. Kurt Russell as Santa gave me the feels. I believe. He's the thing that really carries you through this movie. Not to say that the other elements of this movie are weak, far from it. We'll get to them in a bit. But Kurt Russell embodies St. Nicholas with a bit more of his own flair. You actually definitely feel like he's someone who a long time ago lived out in the rough. You definitely felt the mountain man vibe to him, but you also felt the sincere joy that he has for doing what he does. And that works so well. And there's great moments where he has to interact with just regular people on the streets. And of course he's doing the psychic thing where he knows everybody and he's mapping out their lives, but it's even fun when you see him try to speak in different languages with other people. We being as cynical as we are, and how quick we are to not believe, it is fun to see someone who is actually giving some very compelling evidence for him to actually be Santa Claus. It's actually a lot of fun seeing all these people trying to deny it. You've got some people who are a bit more mean-spirited than those, but then you got the other ones who are confronted with the evidence, but just because they're worried that they may be going batshit insane, of course they're going to be a bit more timid to admit it, and it is fun seeing them react to some very compelling evidence. There even comes a point where Santa gets arrested, and the two arresting officers, you got one who's like, mind's been shredded, he's like, I saw a reindeer! But then you got the other one who's a lot more cynical of it, who's a lot more of a tougher egg to crack. When he finally does, it's a beautiful moment because of the way Santa gets him to finally budge. And now this leads to another thing which, depending on how you look at it, could be a detriment to the film. To me, oddly, I found it to be kind of endearing. This film has some weird pacing in the sense that where the characters should be focusing on the main prize, it still takes the time to have these little asides, which actually do aid heavily in character building and definitely try their best to make some of the plot developments feel a lot less erratic and a lot more earned. And while I will say, I'm like going, guys, we're kind of on a timetable here, you know, Christmas is coming and all that stuff. But because the stuff that we end up delving into, like the cop, and of course like the kids with their whole arc, and all these other random things on the side, you're okay with it because it all aids in these characters feeling a lot more fleshed out. There's even a way where I'm like going, you know, there's a better way you could have staged this, where you could have your cake and eat it too. There's one bit where the kids, even though they're hunting for Santa's sack and they're still on the timetable, they stop, sit down, have a cry, and hug it out. And I'm like, it's a great scene. It's actually really well written, and the kids is one of the times where the kids really act their hearts out. But I have a feeling that with a different direction, or maybe it's just a location issue, I feel like they could have probably staged that differently, where it looks like the kids are still doing the job, but still getting all this baggage out. I feel like that was an opportunity they probably could have done better with better direction and better staging. Here's the thing that is kind of weird about this movie, is that sometimes the tone just goes insane. And there's moments where it's fun, it's upbeat, it's very Christmas, and it's a lot of fun. But then all of a sudden you get these moments of some pretty hardcore darkness. I mean, it's not enough that that Teddy, his sister catches him stealing a car. That's one thing. But then all of a sudden, there comes a point where Teddy just finally gets Santa's sack, and he ends up getting kidnapped by a bunch of thugs, and he gets taken to a chop shop. Well, this just kind of turned on a dime. And these guys are actually legitimately threatening death here. This isn't like a Disney Channel where it's like, oh, we're cartoon thugs. No, these guys are hardcore. They're going to launch his ass in a fireplace, in a furnace. If that was just the one isolated case, that'd be one thing. But there's another bit where Santa's in jail. While it does bounce back with a really fun musical number, before that, he's still in there with hookers and mobsters. And these guys are admitted murderers, too. And I'm like, I feel like I'm seeing Ernest Saves Christmas if it was rated PG-13. A very tight PG-13. I guess I'm laughing at the insanity of it, and I think that's what kept me through all the way, because I admit, I've never seen a movie with Santa that was willing to go as hardcore as that, but by God, this movie does it. And I laughed, and I had a good time. Now, if there's anything I'm going to say is probably that should have been adorable and a bit jolly, but unfortunately comes off as freaking nightmarish and horrifying. It's the f***ing elves! Yeah! The f***ing elves! They first do the kind of trick photography to, hide them, so, make them... But even then, it's getting a little freaky. But then when you finally see the damn things, they look like what happens when the Dark Smurfs from Smurfs 2 hook up with the elves from Rise of the Guardians. That is an abomination, and they need to be burned. Those things need to go in the damn fireplace. I mean, you have one bit where one of them's coming at you with a chainsaw. You little shit. Yeah, that was crazy, but simultaneously, it's the kind of crazy I've never seen in a Christmas movie before, so good on it. I'm giving mixed signals here, but I just want to punctuate the fact that I had a great time watching this movie. Not just Kurt Russell, but there's some actually wonderful bits of design which, even though they seem like they're taking from other ideas from other versions, they seem to have built on it and took it a bit further here. One thing I thought was exceptionally cool was the fact that Santa, with Mrs. Claus, and with the elves actually communicate in what appears to be a dead language, and I thought that was fascinating, and that was a nice little subtlety. But the thing I thought was just mind-shredding, which I thought was wonderful. There's one point where Kate goes into Santa's sack, not knowing what to find, but then you discover that the sack is actually a portal to the North Pole. Very gradually she climbs through, and all of a sudden she ends up on something like kind of a airport assembly line, or luggage tram kind of thing, in order to get the presents up to Santa when he delivers. I was like, that's an inspired concept. But then she arrives in the North Pole and she ends up finding the archive of letters. And the production design is on point on this whole sequence. And again, these are things which made me go, this is spectacular. These are things that when you're doing a movie about Santa, you want to show something new, something different, but something familiar. And another thing I'm not going to spoil for you, but there's a spectacular cameo at the end of the movie when you actually get to meet Mrs. Claus. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's an incredible cameo, and it's another incentive for you to watch it. I suppose if there's another con I have to this movie is that for a movie that actually focuses heavily on the fact that Kate likes to record everything, I felt like they didn't take that as far as I think they could have. Wouldn't this movie have been more interesting and much more unique if they actually rode with the idea of this being a Christmas found footage movie? Because we've already seen found footage being done in horror, but wouldn't it be kind of special if this movie was done, not all of it, but maybe like a substantial portion of it done in the found footage format? It could put the audience into the perspective of a child who waited all night to see Santa and got more than they bargained for. I feel like that could have made for something entirely unique here. But that being said, what we do get out of this still makes for extremely memorable holiday viewing, and I do recommend you guys give it a go. Some might like it, some might think it's a bit schmaltzy, some might think some of the tonal shifts might be a little jarring and a little disorienting. And I will say there's a couple plot holes, particularly around the end, which don't really make a lot of sense to me, but stuff like that really didn't bother me so much, and I think a lot of it is because, first off, Kurt Russell is a fantastic Santa. The kids are actually really well fleshed out characters, even if the kids' performances tend to waver at certain points. But overall, Christmas Chronicles is a lot of fun, and I will probably be watching it multiple times in many years to come. So with that, I'm going to give it a Narcotic Casserole rating of... Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think that this is just another cheap Christmas cash-in? Or do you think that this is something potentially special which may actually make for regular viewing in every family's homes? Leave it all in the comments below. And for more festive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt...